Hey guys, Saf here with another Raid Shadow Legends video. Today's video, I want to talk about the upcoming Hydra Clash, and I'm going to cover this in more detail in terms of like what you get out of it, the different rewards, is it worth it, and all that kind of stuff in the official patch notes breakdown that will be coming out in a couple of days' time that I do on this channel. But what I wanted to mention was the three things they really need to change about Hydra Clash if they want this to work. Because right now, it looks really worrying from some of the things that I'm seeing that it's just going to be a bit of a meme and a bit of a joke because of the way the things are not balanced in the game. So what is Hydra Clash? Hydra Clash is going to be like a CVC of Hydra, essentially. I don't know whether it's going to happen every week or whether it's going to be every other fortnight or something of that nature of scheduling. The first one's going to be starting in around about 5 days' time, around on the 9th. And it's going to be a tournament where 5 different clans get drafted into like a mini bracket. And then the clan needs to do damage to the Hydra, and the clan that deals the most damage to the Hydra wins the tournament. If you win the tournament, you then get a chest. In order to get rewards out of the chest, you also have to produce a personal rewards total. It's a bit like personal clan versus clan, where the clan first has to win, and if the clan wins, then you get rewards based on your sort of personal contribution. Now for Hydra Clash, it's basically a top 3, so the top 3 of the 5 basically get some rewards, and where you position in terms of winning and losing is where your rewards come into it. There's some rules in terms of like, you know, typical clan access where you need to be at least level 45, you need to also have like 50 clan stars activities, you need to do keys and all this sort of thing. They say it's going to be carried out in test mode with 3,000 of the top clans, but I mean, that's pretty much basically all the major clans that do Hydra. I hazard a guess, so there's not that big a deal. It's basically like full release. And yeah, the concept is pretty cool. It's basically like proper clans versus clans where we're competing with another clan and that whoever wins gets some rewards. Great. Out of those rewards, we've of course got the new accessories, the new sort of stone skin and protection accessories. So those are going to be quite powerful, especially I think on the protection side where it's going to enable you to get 75% chance to protect a buff. That's very, very high, especially when you can give those champions you're buffing bonus damage as well. So the rewards in terms of what you can actually get sounds really good. Now let's talk about the first thing that we need to talk about here, which is the multipliers. I think you basically need to get something like 650 million personal contribution to the actual battle. So you need to have done 650 million damage with these multipliers taken into account in order for you to get the top chest. So it's not even about like winning, you have to do that much personally, and that's a lot of personal points. That's the first thing you have to cover off. Now, the way that it's going to work is for the first key that you use on any difficulty, so the first key on the difficulty that you use it on, there will be a multiplication effect on your damage. So your score is essentially your damage times the multiplier. Now, for normal difficulty, you get no multiplier. Hard, you get ×2. Brutal, you get ×3. And Nightmare, you'll get 4 times as much points. Now, you would look at that and go, well, that makes sense. It's a pretty good system. Basically, the harder the content, the more valuable your multiplier is. Well, the problem is, when you take into account how the system works, these multipliers are just not good. I was talking to a couple of different people about it, and we were basically saying all the same thing, which was the difficulty of Nightmare is not represented as ×4 normal. So the way that you need to look at this is, if I want to really push a lot of effort on Nightmare, I've got to basically say that Nightmare getting ×4 is worth more than me just using all my best champions and doing as much damage to normal as I can. Keeping in mind that normal, you can kill heads really easy, much more comfortably. Once you get those heads down, they have a lot lower defenses, they're a lot slower, less accuracy. You basically can do it a lot easier. Is normal equivalent to 4 times easier than Nightmare? I would hazard a guess to say no. I would say, looking at this, most top clans are probably going to go, well, we'll just do 1 key on Nightmare, but we're not putting our best team in there. And when it's a Hydra Clash, we'll just sack off all the others and we'll just go absolutely crazy on brutal and normal or hard. And we'll go and push normal or hard as high as we possibly can to win. I'm going to show you some screenshots of some of these normal and hard teams. When you see the numbers, you will see what I mean. So what I think they almost need to do is revisit these multiplications and actually assess whether or not ×4 is appropriate, because I don't think it is. I would say probably you want to go quite a lot more exponential. I would say you would probably want to make Nightmare almost like ×15. Maybe make Brutal ×10 and Hard ×2. Something of that nature. There's not an awful lot of difference between normal and brutal, normal and hard, in terms of, yes, it's more difficult, but it's not so much more difficult that you have to really have a different team, right? Trender will work on normal, Trender will work on hard. Trender starts not working really on brutal unless you've got like scratch tier gear, right? Unless you've got really, really good quality gear. Trender starts getting very difficult. And then when you get to Nightmare, you don't really see the Trenders of the world. That's when you start seeing like the Acrisias, your max HP nukers, right? And those have kind of a cap. Acrisia is still absolutely broken, right? You would say, well, you're asking for a times 15 with an Acrisia that can do like millions of damage on Nightmare. True, but when you see how much damage normal and hard is going to do, you're going to see what I'm talking about. So that's the first thing that I would change. I don't think these multipliers encourage you to push the hardest difficulty. I think these multipliers encourage you not to push the hardest difficulty and actually force you into the normal. Keep it in mind, if you basically take what I would call an average end game to late game player, they're probably running around about 100 million on their Nightmare key, 50 million on their Brutal key, and 50 million on their Hard key. If we assume you don't have 3 Acrisias, right? If we assume you're not running 3 Acrisias on 3 different teams, maybe you have 1 Acrisia running on your Nightmare team, maybe your Nightmare team does a bit more than 100 million. But for me personally, I'm looking at it going, I can probably hit 100 million on Nightmare, I can probably hit around 50 million on Brutal if I really work on my team, and I can probably hit about 50 million on Hard. Now that is basically the minimum. Those multiplications is the minimum you need to hit the top chest of the Hydra, 650, because you will get 400 million from Nightmare, you'll get about 150 million from Brutal, and then you get 100 million from Hard. That is the bare minimum that you need. 150 and 50. So really, when you look at it and go, well, that's a lot of effort and a lot of work to basically have 3 finely tuned teams that can actually do that. Now, some people in chat might be saying 50 million on Brutal, that's a joke, I can do a lot easier. I'm doing this as an average late game player that doesn't have access to Acrisias and does like in multitudes and maybe doesn't have access to maybe a Nekmothar, right? You might have one team that's really good, but you probably don't have enough to make 3 really good teams. You're much easier just going, tell you what, I'll just blow up normal and do absolute stupid amounts of damage to normal, because the multiplier, I'm easily going to get twice the amount of damage on normal than I would hard. I might even get 3 times as much damage as I would on brutal on normal. So the system is incentivizing you not to actually push the difficulties, which shouldn't be the case. It should be the other way around. So I would say the first thing we need to change is push these numbers up so that players feel like it's worth them doing the extra effort to get to Nightmare, which is what you want to reward, right? You want to push people into the higher difficulties. The second thing we need to change is some edge case champions. Now, this was something I thought they would fix when Emic came out. There was lots of issues. A lot of people talking about it. I've kind of stayed away from it because I didn't want to be accused of nerfing another champion. But Emic Trancart was basically extending the Corpulent Cadaver shield to such an extent that people were killing the clan boss in 9 turns with like 8 billion damage or something stupid. And I basically, at that time, my personal opinion was, well, why don't you just cap the Corpulent Cadaver and nuke the Infinity comp? Because I'll be honest, it's a bit of a silly situation that a rare champion that doesn't even need to be built with any sort of specific build beyond the lowest HP, it doesn't even need crit damage, can literally just start smacking for 600 million damage because you've grown the shield to such an extent. It's not that I'm devaluing the work that Victor Tess and Mullet Reavers does. Like, their brains in terms of figuring out how to maximize that team has been pretty impressive to see. You know, I'm not trying to diminish their work. I'm just simply saying from a game balance perspective, why is there one rare champion that now is going to break every shield growth mechanic because he does something that no other champion in the game does? This is like what happened with Nogdar and Sand Devil, because he did one thing differently to any other champion in the game. It broke Sand Devil. They instantly just nuked the champion passive to stop it working on bosses, right? They fixed the one, not the all. With Emic, though, they've decided to cap the A1. They maybe felt like even other shielding could be a bit too problematic with it. So they've capped the Emic shield. Now, but they haven't dealt with the Corpulent Cadaver. So now is the time to actually look at some crazy screenshots. These are the teams that I've been seeing on different channels. I've seen them posted in different places. I'm pretty sure this might be either Mullet Reavers or Victor Tess's sort of champions, because I know he's got a pretty big Brogni. But this is what I'm talking about in terms of multipliers. If you do not fix Corpulent Cadaver, this is just not going to work. Now, I'm pretty sure the way this is dealing lots of damage is there must be like a hex out there, because like you've got a 3.3 billion Lydia. I mean, what's the point of anyone ever pushing Nightmare if someone can just drop 17 billion damage? You know, I mean, this is the problem with edge case scenarios when you don't balance the game. Because Corpulent Cadaver is hitting so hard, all the other champions are doing lots of damage to dead heads. The heads are always permanently dead. Nuke the Cadaver. This rare spirit champion should not be doing this much damage. Put a cap on his HP. You can still make the Infinity comp a viable 1 key it doesn't need to do 4 billion damage. It just needs to be balanced. In your Hydra Clash system, what's the point of anyone taking it seriously when they see this? Okay, this is like an extremely edge case scenario. I'm not saying that every person in the game can do this. You might try to reproduce this effect and get half as much. You might not have the double Yumiko. You might not have the +4 Brogni. But even if you take half of this damage, what's the point of anyone ever pushing Nightmare? There's no way that they're going to be able to match, what is that? Half of that, a 9 billion damage. This is 9 billion points. So if you have 20 people in your clan doing this comp, like that's a meme. The whole Hydra Clash system falls apart. This doesn't work. This is just not viable. So this needs to be fixed once and for all now. Any shield growth champion that comes out that you're going to add in the future is going to have the same problem. You're going to have to remember, oh, we've got that rare champion that does one unique thing that no other champion in the game does, that we have to balance every other shield growth champion around. Just put a reasonable cap on the shield damage bonus that Corpulent Cadaver can do so that it's still good damage. It can still one key Ultra Nightmare Clan Boss if people still want to keep their Infinity comps. It just doesn't go on forever and it doesn't do 4 billion damage. And then you fix this problem because this team doesn't work without the Corpulent Cadaver. They're only doing lots of damage here because essentially they're killing deadheads and they're attacking deadheads. And that's probably a damage-based Lydia. And there could even be a Hex out as well. So you're basically spreading the damage across because Hex basically multiplies on dead heads. So that's the only reason why this team is doing so much damage is because of this Corpulent Cadaver. You take the Cadaver out, the team falls apart, and then it's more balanced. So that's the first thing they need to change here is Corpulent Cadaver needs a nuke out of the second phase of stuff, right? Basically fixing edge case champions. Corpulent Cadaver's A1 needs a value cap to basically go something like deals bonus damage based on his shield. The value is 30%. Damage cannot be greater than 60,000 or 70,000, whatever number they set. That means you can still use that comp in Clan Boss to one key with good gear, but it doesn't mean that he can do 4 billion damage. Let's have a look at the next edge case. It's very similar again. You see in the similar thing, Trunda's. Trunda's A2 has been a broken skill for the last 2 years, and I've said so many times it should be fixed. The way that it is working at the moment is Trunda will attack a single target and deal damage and critically deal damage there. And then it will take 60% of that damage and deal that damage to all other enemies. And then it critically hits again. So what ends up happening is her secondary attack doesn't just get the benefit of one set of critical damage and critical multiplications, it gets two. So if you attack a deadhead with the first hit of the A2, you're going to get 200% bonus damage. And then when you attack all the other heads, because you're doing 60% of the base damage of that first hit, that's already had the 200%, which means the second attack on all the other heads gets another 200%. So in essence, the AoE effect is getting 400%. It's getting double the amount of crit damage. It's getting double the amount of mastery damage. It's getting double the amount of everything. It's too much. When you look at champions like Bellinor, Dracomorph, Drake, their excess or secondary damage sources don't crit, so that it cannot take advantage of damage multiplication effects twice. And you need to do a similar thing here. You need to stop the second hit from critically striking. And then Trunda is balanced. And if you don't do that, it's another meme. Because if someone has two Trundas, okay, you might not be able to get to 9 billion. But even if you get to 4 billion, it's still more points than any sort of nightmare comp could ever dream of hitting by about at least twice the amount. Even if you look at the best, most extreme Nightmare comps, I think the most extreme one I've ever seen is about 800 million on Nightmare. It's a 4 times multiplier. 3.2 billion on Nightmare. On the best team in the entire game that I've ever seen is only 3.2 billion. This, even if it's half the amount of efficiency, is going to be probably 5 billion. So it beats a Nightmare team. So they need to fix these edge case champions. Fix Cadaver, fix Trunda. Taras is probably another champion that could be a big problem, but he's a little bit more awkward to set up because of this, the AoE damage reduction, right? The thing about the Trunda single hit into an AoE, the single hit is single target, so it doesn't suffer the AoE penalties. It's just much easier to get bonus damage out of it. So Taras kind of suffers from that. You saw it a little bit in the Hydra Clash where Scratch is having a lot of trouble trying to get the Hydra to work when the suffering head was up. Taras was doing a lot less damage, so it's not as bad. But yeah, these two edge cases are going to make Hydra a meme, because why would you run any Nightmare difficulty when you can just jump in? Look, it's not even like it'll take them a while. It'll take them like an hour a week. But if it means they get access to stone skin accessories, they'll do it. These endgame players and Krakens will push that if they can, because they'll do it as a joke. So these have to be fixed before Hydra Clash happens, because it will make people not want to do Hydra Clash, especially if the matchmaking is poor, and you'll put people off a system which I think is very good. I think the Hydra Clash concept is very good. So you fix the multipliers so that it actually makes Nightmare more relevant, because you want to incentivize people to do the harder content. You don't need to make it so much that if you don't do Nightmare, you can't participate. It's not what I'm advocating for. I'm simply saying that it's much easier just to do normal and forget about the harder difficulties, which is kind of counterintuitive. You don't really want to do that. And it's also a bit rubbish for people who want to do Nightmare to get the other rewards. Now they're being incentivized to not do them and go back to normal, which they've already left like maybe 4 months ago. So it's kind of a bit weird. And then you need to fix Cadaver and Trunda, because otherwise anyone with you know, will start reproducing this, and all you'll have is basically Hydra Clashes full of Cadavers and Trundas trying to basically hit like 1 quintillion points as a clan contribution. It will be just stupid. Now, the last thing I want to point out is also the Hydra rewards. They're not that good. I'm going to go into more detail in the patch notes video. Essentially, you're going to get what one Nightmare Chest clan gold gives you a week. A little bit of clan XP, which at this point is kind of worthless for most people, because either your clan is near like 19 or you get basically nothing for that little bit of clan XP. So these two rewards, you're a bit like, I'm already getting those. And the one you really want, you get one. You get 1 5-star mythical. Now, I've double checked this in the code. This is the type of reward you're going to get. So for your hard effort and work every single week, considering there's only 1 chest you get here, you're going to get 1 artifact. So we've got to roll probably, like, firstly, we've got to roll what type of artifact. So maybe you just keep getting rings. You can't get your 9 out of 9. Then you probably have to roll, like, the primary stat. I don't really know whether or not it's going to be like faction specific. All the images seem to show that it's universal. There's some confusion as to whether or not it's going to be just like a universal artifact. I'd imagine it's going to be faction specific though, surely. I mean, they haven't said that it isn't going to be, and all other accessory sets and everything else is faction specific. So it probably means you have to roll the faction as well. So not only do you have to roll the item, you have to roll the faction, and you have to roll the primary stat and the substats. And you get 1 attempt at that roll a week. Like, that to me just screams, unless you're going to get all 4 chests, which I can't imagine, that's not enough. That's not enough to incentivize me to do this. That's really, really bad. Like, that's basically like running 1 spider and hoping for the best. Because if this rolls a 5-star mythical, that's an instant sell. Pretty much an instant sell. I would imagine if everyone who's watching this video right now would probably tell me, if it's a 5-star, they sell it. It doesn't even matter if it's mythical. The only reason why they would keep it maybe is if it was a mythical roll on speed and it rolled like 3 or 4 on speed. Because most late game accounts just use 6-star gear. So if it's going to be giving us 5-star gear, which in the data it seems to suggest there's a chance on lower tiers especially that 5-star is in there. On higher tiers even it's 5-star. The top chest gives you a chance. I can't see the probabilities because they've had a habit now of hiding the probabilities, which is fine, but it does mean that you can get 5-star gear. At least 3 of the 6 potential rewards are going to be instant sell, and you only get 1 a week. So that's the third thing. If you don't fix the edge cases, then Hydra Clash will become a meme. If you don't fix the multipliers to actually incentivize us to push higher, then you're actually punishing us to do this game mode, which means we probably won't want to do it because we don't really want to lose our nightmare keys, hard and brutal keys, to do a normal so that we can win Hydra Clash. And then thirdly, because the rewards are not good enough, I'm just de-incentivized even further because I don't want to basically spend all week trying to get and win a Hydra Clash for my clan to basically walk away with a 5-star rare that I'm going to sell instantly. That's very, very disheartening. So those are the 3 things that I would say have to change before Hydra Clash even comes out. Otherwise, you end up with a system that is just not that enticing to play. And it would be a shame because this is the kind of system that I want to see more of. I want to see more clan coordination with the game modes to try and win more rewards with my clan mates and my clan friends and actually help my clan to progress. This doesn't help me progress. This is more, can I find a way to trick the system to basically give me some rewards that I might get lucky with? And that's really not... That's not going to encourage a lot of clans to participate. You'll find it's a bit like Live Arena where I might get to a break point and then just forget it ever exists. So there you go, guys. That is the 3 things that I would fix in Hydra Clash straight away. Yeah, let me know in the comments below what you think. Are you getting ready for Hydra Clash? Are you confident? Are you going to be doing that kind of normal strategy, or are you going to try and push the hardest key in Nightmare that you can? If you've got an Acrizia, you're probably good. I don't have an Acrizia, so I have to work a lot harder, but Gnut is a very good option as well if you haven't got Acrizia. I'll probably be doing a bit of a video on my Nightmare team around about when Hydra Clash comes out, just so it's relevant as well. But there you go, guys. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.